I am events coordinator here, and we are so excited to have Caroline and Helen here tonight.
Yay!
Before we get started, just to point out some logistics for how tonight's event's going to go, just really quickly, if you need the bathroom, it's right here. And we're going to be doing an audience Q&A at the end of the night, so hold on to your questions now. And then after the talk tonight, Caroline will be signing over here. So we'll line up kind of along the wall after, but I'll remind everyone there. And then if you're joining us virtually, please buy a copy of this incredible debut cookbook in the live stream link. Thank you so much. Oh my God. Banchan is so special. I was telling Caroline before that I'm not much of a chef myself, mostly because of lack of talent and patience. But I can't wait to take this home and make all these recipes. And as a vegetarian that craves these like unique staple tofu recipes, in particular that soy braised tofu will be on my table literally this weekend.
Nice.
My mouth was watering just looking at all this deliciousness. So I can't wait to hear you talk about it. So Caroline Choe is a chef, artist, teacher, and writer based in New York City and is a proud daughter of Korean American immigrants. She is the creator of the Exploratorians illustration series and the founder of Create and Plate, a business devoted to helping create community through arts and food education. Both she and her work have been featured in Food and Wine, NPR, Food 52, Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution, Glamour, and NBC's Today Show. And Helen M. Choe is a Korean American, 2-time Emmy Award nominated director, producer, and showrunner from New York City. Yeah. Helen served as executive producer and showrunner of Takeout with Lisa Ling, now streaming on HBO Max.
Woo!
IndieWire named Takeout one of the best documentaries and docuseries of 2022. She holds a BFA from New York University's Tisch School of the Arts. More importantly, she's the proud daughter of a nail salon worker and a USPS letter carrier. So thank you all so much, and please welcome Caroline and Helen.
Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for coming.
I am so excited to celebrate you and this amazing book. She asked me to write the foreword, and when I was thinking about this book, I couldn't help but think about how fitting it was that your book is about Banchan, which, if you know Carolyn, you know that she shows up at every single event, like every event, especially if it's the Asian American related or food related. But I mean, it's like not even a joke. Like she'll be I see her at like Mongchi's event, then like she's at some gala, then she's at some, like she's like every possible influencer and anyone in the community, like she shows up. And not only that, but like in your writing too, I feel like you've always championed other people. And to me, Banchan is, if you don't know what Banchan is always on the table, and it's kind of like the sleeper, like you called it supporting cast in the book, but it's really like, to me it's the like silent star, you know. And I thought that was very fitting. And also Banchan, like when I go to a restaurant, it's like I judge a restaurant by their Banchan. Like if their Banchan is trash, I'm like, there's like two things I look for. It's like how many Koreans are actually in this restaurant, and the second thing is like how good is their Banchan.
Exactly. That's exactly what I do, because I mean there was a time when I didn't know what was considered good kimchi and what was considered bad kimchi. I'll fully admit that. That to me, now of course I have my taste and I can know better of what's considered good, what's good for this and what's good for that. But yeah, no, it was like one of the more obscure things to be asked is like, can you write a book about Banchan? I was like, I could. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I wanted to at first, only because, well, A, I was really burnt out, and B, it was because, like, do I really want my first cookbook to be about individually being Korean? And I didn't want to necessarily be, pigeonholed like that. But I ended up kind of just proposing it. And I was like, they could say yes, they could say no. I said, I can give you Korean American cookbook. Can I do that? And you're working with a very white publisher and, with not as many Korean people. And, they do their best at this moment, I suppose. But that's also like, they didn't refuse. I've been asked many times, what's the difference? But I'm hoping this kind of illustrates what it is.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about your path to getting a book out? Getting a book out is like any creative venture is just like, so it's a miracle that any show, film, book gets released, made and published. So like, can you talk through the process of how you came to this book? And
yeah, so I had, I'm going to do something my dad told me to do, was put my feet together. Sorry.
Really? Why? Is there something, a trick about
He saw my Korea Society video and he's like, okay, a couple of things. And I was just like, oh my God, okay. Because, you're not self-conscious enough in life. But yeah, no, so I had to remember, I was like, oh yeah. No, so basically how this all came about was I had quit my job for, this industry, food media, food, being, owning a business, doing all this, advocating for yourself. And, I can say that it has been the most adventurous part of getting to know yourself over again. I taught in schools for 13 years, loved teaching, knew that was my gift and my job. But, there was a fulfillment I had from teaching art and teaching stuff to do with making things and creating things. And the opportunity for that had kind of run low, even though I had a master's degree. So I ended up pretty much teaching from auctioning them off at school auctions. And then that kind of where the business kind of came out of. And then I went into this head first, as my husband will tell you. And basically, that was the time of the blogging craze was becoming this big wave of a thing and became very saturated. And blogging, if anyone here has tried it, it's tiring. It's very tiring to keep up with. It has a whole new life now. And so I ended up it kind of took on a life of its own. I was teaching around the city, different clients and different families.
What were you teaching?
I was teaching cooking. I was also teaching art lessons, but the cooking lessons were much more appealing to parents who wanted dinner for, the family, and they didn't have to cook a thing. It's like, you're teaching my child how to cook. Oh, wonderful. And I was like, yeah, this is a wonderful thing. It kind of was, because to teach a kid how to just make a grilled cheese in a pan was something to them that was mysterious, and how simple it was. So then basically when lockdown happened, that was when the writing, I had started it and published a few recipes. The kimchi mac and cheese, which is in the book, was actually the first one that I've ever had published. It was along with my parents' kimchi recipe for Food 52. And that was the venture into freelance. And then lockdown happened and I couldn't go to anyone's house anymore to teach anybody. Everything slowed down. And luckily the writing was taking a new life of its own and more availability for opportunities to do it. So I worked my ass off basically trying to, for anybody who doesn't know, freelance writing is not the most lucrative, way to make a living. Your name does get out there, and that was the advice I was given, was just keep writing and keep writing. But you get like $100, $200, $300 if you're lucky a piece. You will pitch and pitch and pitch and basically get rejected. Sometimes see your ideas come up. Oh, we already had that idea. It's like, no, you didn't. So that ended up happening. I then went to work. I did a lot of pieces for one particular publisher. It was getting to the point where I was like, am I going to be invited to become full-time staff? And that's always the question. And I ended up a few times in this game saying, like, I quit, like, forget it, this is ridiculous. And I kid you not, every time I said I quit, I know these 3 times I've said I quit, there's always some sign from God or whoever that's like, all right, you stupid bitch, like, I'm going to give this to you. It's like, God, like, you couldn't hold on just a little while longer. But this time it really was it. There was a job that had opened up at the company that I had freelanced for a long time, and I was passed over for it. They didn't even ask. Then I got a book deal that was thrown my way, but it was a terrible book deal. I didn't know what a book deal was supposed to look like. And I sent it off to 2 friends. One of them was Eric Kim, and the other one was another agent that I know. She wasn't my agent, and the word that they used was abysmal. They're like, this is a terrible offer. Like, I would never take this. I would never advise a client to take this. And you just can't help but feel like crap. You're like, I didn't get this job. They didn't think of me for this job. I suck at life. I suck at this. Like, I'm done. And, so luckily I have a very supportive partner, and I didn't, he had seen me struggle for a long time. You're watching, it feels like that everyone around you is succeeding and is getting the press and getting the things that they have the connections you're really wishing you had. And opportunities. So I had quit. I told him, I don't know what I'm going to do next. And he basically was supportive, and he just said, you know what? Forget it. Take a week off. If you're wired like us, for us type A people, I admit I'm one. But it's not easy to say you have nowhere that you're going someplace else. You have no plan. You have nothing in place. And knew I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back to schools to teach. So I took a week off, just didn't really tell anybody, didn't want the parents to panic and start being like, what are you going to do? And I just, we went up to see my brother in Massachusetts, and I was with my nieces. I still remember this moment. My niece they're both gymnasts, and she was like bending over backwards, and she's like, look at this. I was hugging her. I'm like, that's disgusting. And it was just that moment that my friend called, and she never calls, Jasmine Choe, if anyone knows who she is. She's an activist, but does it through baking. And she called me, and I was like, she never calls, she texts, and she goes, my agent wants to meet you. And I said, agents never want to meet me. And I had been through many agents meetings at that point and had been burned by every single one. So I took, I was like, what should I do? I don't know if I can take another rejection. And, under his advisement, my sister, they're like, just take the meeting. If you don't like it, go back to quitting. It's fine. And I took the meeting, and the rest is history. So,
wow, that's incredible. It's really not easy to come back from so much rejection. That's something that I took away from your story too. It's what advice do you have for somebody who's feels like it's...
I hated being told, just hang in there and it'll work out. Who is really? Thanks. I didn't know. It's just... The thing is, it's because for our parents, this was not a choice. It was we've learned from them pretty much whatever was ingrained in our brains pretty much is that if you don't have employment, if you're not in a direction, then you suck at life. And so coming back from it, again, it's sometimes the universe kind of reaches out and gives you an opportunity, and you get to decide whether or not you want to take it. And in this case, that's what happened here. Had I not been, I've actually thought about this. I'm like, what if I didn't get to write this? And I could have said no. But I was just like, if it wasn't, I'm pretty sure I would still be working on being healed and happy. So, yeah.
Can you just describe to people who may not know what Banchan actually is?
It is the dishes, I hate saying side dishes, but they are. They're if you go to Korean barbecue or any Korean restaurant, it's there's 3 main categories of dishes that are on the table, and it's soy braised, so there's torim, and then there's mutim, namul and mutim, which is the fresh vegetable preparation. And then there's also the fermented kimchi and tangadi. So, but there's more offerings than that. And at least in the United States or wherever we've gone. And so I kind of wanted to get into the questions I was always asked by students who wanted to know about ton and putimke and soups. And even Mangti herself had said that soup can be served as and considered a pantan because if it's small, if it goes with your pap at the table, your rice, that anything really can kind of go interspersed into every category. And because she said it, it's okay. But
I mean, y'all know Mangchi, the OG.
OG,
She's the OG.
YouTube, yeah.
So okay, there's 60 pantan recipes, which, by the way, like for as much food-related television that I've made, like I am not a very well skilled cook,
Yeah.
and these directions were, even for me, easy to follow, which is, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you also to the editor.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, so there's 60, like why 60, and how did you like whittle that down? Was there like a panchan bracket that you like had a map of like, all right?
I mean, I'm going to be honest about this. There's, a set number that they wanted and a set number that it all comes down to numbers, right? I was like, well, how much are you willing to give me for 100 or 80 or 90 recipes? And we landed on a number after a month, and that's how long it sometimes takes. Their initial offer was one thing, and then I said, let's try to up the number. And then we landed on that number because of the number that they decided to give me. Mainly because in the advance, you have to use it for the book. You have to shop and test recipes and get people to test your recipes. You have to use a very big chunk of it, for those who don't know, and I didn't know this until I made this book, to pay for your photographs. And because in the contract it says you're in charge of photos and text. That's it. It's like, wow, that's very simple. And that woman back there was one of the people that gave me really good advice, Miss Abby Bellingett. It really helped to have people who knew how to do this before, because it was really kind of feeling my way in the dark. I didn't know how to answer anyone's questions, even when we got down to, and also, this is a fun fact. So I had all their money, and we had booked the studio, I had booked the photographer, my food stylist, my prop person. And I was so anxious because I was like, all these agencies and whoever are emailing about payments and all these things, and I'd never heralded any of that before. So the answers I was giving them, I guess, were incorrect. So even though I had the numbers and the invoices and...
Wait, incorrect how?
I think I had given them wrong numbers based on whatever I saw. Apparently they were wrong. I didn't know. And so I ended up just calling an emergency meeting with my agent and the editor, Claire, and I just said, guys, I have all your money. I will just give it back to you. Like, I can't do this. I really can't.
Wow.
And they just said, okay, let's talk. Like, what's going on? What do you need from us? I'm like, what do I need? Like, I need one of you to come out here and actually and the first day, I'll never forget, like, my photographer, Ghazal Badiozamani, who was amazing and wonderful. And it was really important to work for me to want to work with Asian American women on set. And Chronicle had their roster of people to choose from, and Ghazal was one of them. She's Iranian American. And I couldn't have asked for a better person to work with, because she knew how nervous I was. And because you don't want to let anyone down when you're in charge, as I'm sure you've had anxiety about, and she just she's the best person to be with when you're very insecure about the job you're trying to do. And she just went, it's okay. Like, this is how we're going to do this. I'm going to shoulder, everything. I'll talk to everybody. And all you have to do is I'm just going to give you something at the end and it'll be how much it is. And she stayed within my budget, which I was astounded. It was a low budget. But you need people like that. You need people who are solution-based and nurturing to a newbie, basically. And, I was working on, all I had to do was work on my copy edits in the background. It was a little bit backwards. You're supposed to have the copy edited final version manuscript. But no, the timeline was different because I proposed 3 dates to the team and I said, which date would you like? They picked the earliest one, July. And I was like, okay. So we did it and I was working on it while, and I just I'll just demonstrate. I'm not used to doing this. I just walked around set like this. I was like, so what's going on? Like, I don't know what to do with my hands because I'm used to jumping in and doing everything myself. So it was kind of interesting to have people bringing your vision to life, basically. And the team was wonderful. They just took care of me. And I had not felt that way before. Because again, you're sometimes very alone on that journey. And basically, like, they had told me stories because they were all experienced and I was new. And they said, listen, I've been on sets that, like, people are screaming at each other. The chef and the photographer are going at it, and we're all just standing in the backyard, like.
Yeah, I mean, to be real, from the film, TV perspective, just because you're experienced does not mean that you make good decisions or know what you're doing. Many reasons for that. Systemically, but that is so important to have like trusted collaborators, and it's great that you got to pick, your team. For that.
Yes.
I just honestly, it's kind of blows my mind that like we have a book out that a book of Banchan hasn't already existed, but at the same time, the fact that it does exist now is kind of mind blowing because. This picture made me laugh so much because I feel like this picture, is this you, I'm assuming?
That is me.
Drinking a Coke at like age
in Korea.
2 or something. It's like such
age
like how
5,
different times were back then. No, because I had the same exact picture of me drinking a Coke at the age of like 3 years old.
It was bribery. It's okay. They were just like, you can come with, if you come with us, we'll give you Coca-Cola.
No, but like such a different time, right? Like you talk a lot about how, kimchi and just Korean food in general, like so perceived differently. And to be in a place now that we have this book is like absolutely incredible to me.
Yeah, that was no pressure. It was like, I'm glad they told me that later, that they're like, it's the first book written about Banchan in the US. I'm like,
wild.
What? I'm like, okay, no pressure. Like, Korean people don't come at me. It's like, because the thing is, it was also, thanks for talking about the directions, because again, I worked with young children for a really long time, and to teach anyone how to cook can be really overwhelming. And my hope was that people would realize that this is not intimidating. A lot of these are just one bowl, throwing everything in there and mixing it up with your hand. And by the way, Eva Pilgrim, from Channel 7, ABC, she got right in there. She knew what to do. She put the gloved hand on. And I was like, that's right. That's right. That is right, sis. You do it. But it's honestly, this is just one voice. It's one story. And already I've gotten some people who are like, this isn't really Korean food. And
really? Who said that? What's their name?
And
okay, so everyone go on Amazon or whatever on the review site and just
that's the thing. It's like you're not going to be able to please everybody. Like even the books that were written before, and the thing is like Korean food in general. Though Chinese American food is now very widely accepted that this is Chinese American and not Chinese, and it's been very accepted. But Koreans, I feel that we're still getting there, or there's many that are still getting there. And it's, still very gate-kept, safeguarded. Also, it's still very sexist. And it's, what does this girl know? That kind of thing. I'm like, well, what I know is in there. It was pretty much like, this is what is on the table at my house and was at my parents' house. And, I haven't heard anyone complaining when they eat it. So it's also, it's one voice in the entire operation. I'm not the spokesperson for Korean cooking, but I also don't really want to be, because it's kind of just going with the whole monolith thing. I was like, we all don't eat the same, and we do love a lot of the same things, but it's about discovering what else can be done.
Yeah, like I'd never had actually chicken and oyster miyoki.
Oh, my dad makes it all the time.
I usually have it
it's
with
delicious.
beef, so that sounded really good though.
Yeah.
Do you have like, if there was somebody who'd never cooked Korean food before or banchan, like, do you have a recipe that they should start with, or that's like easy enough as an intro?
It depends what your fancy is. I mean, it's like I try to include everything on the spectrum of eating. There's vegan, vegetarian, there's pescatarian, there's completely carnivorous, and there's something in there for everybody. But I would say to a person just starting, it's about what you're comfortable with. If you're into the whole throw everything in a pot and kind of, let it roll, then I would suggest maybe start with the broth. There's Korean anchovy broth, and then there's my broth that has a few other components to it, like carrots and celery, and or there's also, try one of the namurs, one of the vegetable dishes, because I chose, the reason I chose 시금치 on GMA was because they needed a recipe that could be done in 3 minutes. I was like, you got it. So that is such a good go-to when you just need to, for parents, it's actually very, assuring to you that, you're going to make something that the kids want to eat and it's nice and seasoned. Then 시금치 나물 is really good. Something that, if you want to try something new, you have something that's about to spoil, you're tired of eating strawberries all the damn time, there's also the kotori, which is where that came from. We were having, banchan chicken, and I was like, we have these strawberries, I don't really feel like eating them like whole anymore, and so I just made that. And no, it's not traditional by any means, but the thing is like, this is what was in my house, and this is what we had, and this is what we made. So.
You brought up 시금치, and so I already know what the answer is to this question, but I'm going to ask you because there's a lot to talk about here, about your favorite banchan. Now, to me, banchan and picking, one of the things that I love so much was also how you talked about each of your family members have their own favorite banchan.
Yeah.
To me, it feels like that says so much about who you are. It's like the horoscope MBTI of like Korea is like, what is your favorite banchan? So will you please tell everyone what your favorite banchan is and why?
Well, you laughed at me already.
No, I'm actually very genuinely curious.
It is 시금치 나물 and 콩나물, soybeans. I don't know what it is. It's just comfort. So if I have, galbi at a restaurant, I basically, if it's on the table, forget it. It's mine. I just keep eating it. Probably just because it's the freshness, the crispiness, the saltiness of it. It goes well with your pup and your galbi. So, and if I have kim, seaweed, throw that in there also. So yeah, that's pretty
It's like
much
always
it.
been your number one?
Honestly, if I think back far enough, yeah. Because I fully admit to being like the kid that wasn't too keen on kimchi unless it was like, not as spicy. And now it's like my palate changed and it just was more welcomed. And, again, now the difference between what's good kimchi and what's not great kimchi. But everything's welcome to the table, basically. So.
Okay, fine. A better question then.
Yeah.
Is fuck, marry, kill banchan edition.
Oh. Sorry, honey.
Sorry.
Ooh. Okay. Fuck the kimchi. No. No. I'll marry the kimchi mac and cheese. I'll kill kosari namur because I fucking hate making it. Sorry, whatever. And I don't know what I'd fuck.
You said, oh wait, okay. You said marry the kimchi mac and cheese. Oh,
We're life
You
bound.
killed the, okay, yeah, okay.
I'll
so
kill 고사리 나물 because I hate making it. Freaking hate making that thing. Maybe the crab salad to fuck because
Really?
it can be expensive, but it was I say it was for my mother for Mother's Day, and it's a special occasion thing to have on the table because I don't got the money to make that all the time, so not yet anyway. But it's, yeah, I mean, you know, it'd be a good time.
Okay, that's a good answer. I was thinking, yeah, as I was like, what would my answers be? It's like,
what would your answer be?
I know immediately which one I would kill, and it's not in your book, so that's good.
Oh, thank God.
But I probably would marry the miyeokguk or the dubu jorin.
Okay.
Yeah, probably the miyeokguk though.
Yeah.
It's like stable, dependable, delicious, comforting.
Some people don't like it. I was really
Miyeokguk?
surprised. Yeah. I was really surprised.
If you didn't grow up
that.
with it, maybe I could see that. But I probably would fuck the corn cheese or the kimchi mac and cheese. Or, it's not in there, but maybe the kanjang-gejang.
Oh, so
like the raw marinated crab.
I say why
maybe.
I
No,
said
you're allergic,
yeah.
so it's
No,
not,
not me.
you're-
My father
dad's
is,
allergic,
and my
yeah.
mother loves crab. So we never really had kanjang-gejang. And for those who don't know what that is, it's the soy marinated crabs, and we just never had it because of that. But like, I love playing with them at the
That's what I mean.
supermarket.
So definitely in the fuck category. And then as far as kill, it would definitely be the I don't know if you ever had the like fruit salad. It's basically like one grape that's covered in mayonnaise with like a nasty cut up apple. That's
Sometimes
also
they put
covered
it in the
mayonnaise.
potato salad, and
Okay,
I'm like,
potato salad can be in a different category. But like the fruit salad specifically, and
Yeah.
it might be because I grew up in, my parents had a fruit and vegetable store growing up, so I have
Sure.
like some fruit trauma. But specifically, the mayonnaise fruit salad.
that always freaked me out too.
So
But
why?
surprisingly, my aunt actually made some pretty good salads, I'd say, with mayo. But I will say, yeah, that always kind of freaked me out was the like canned fruit or like
God.
fresh fruit that, you know, they'd smother in mayonnaise.
It's disgusting.
I don't know. I've never been high, but I'd imagine if you really wanted
No, even
something.
if you're high, you don't want that. That's definitely not on the list.
You'll all have to tell me. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like doing anything for the first time, like especially a book or a project, is so scary. And one of the things I admire so much about you is just like that you can switch and like pivot and like just approach new projects and say yes. Like you said, you could have said no after all the people who like didn't believe in what you were doing, and yeah, I think like that is such a incredible thing. And I'm also amazed, like I don't understand how you do it as well. Like these events, these people that you go up to and you're just like, I always see like a picture of like her and the person, and I'm like, I don't even know how you go up to all these people. Like it's amazing. Like,
I mean, my sister's not here to confirm this, and you know, neither are my parents, but I don't know. There's a picture of me when I was really little, and I don't even know who this man is now, but apparently I ran up to him at some bowling alley at some birthday party, and I said, I know you from television, and he was some anchor man. To this day, I don't know what his name is, but and I just remember my mother was so embarrassed, and she's like, I'm so sorry, like, sorry to bother you. He picked me up, and we took a picture together, but I don't know. It's not the whole like, yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, but at the same time, I also know what it's like to, you know, to be there and be stuck in the corner and just pacing the floor and just being like, what the hell am I doing here? Like everyone who knows each other just already talking to each other. No matter who's known more, we're all people. I mean, this is like, you know, you eat, breathe, and shit just like everybody else. But it's, you know, for them, I'm sure if they're not as like me, who I'm just kind of like, hi, nice to meet you. You know, are we going to be best friends? I don't know. But it's also just my effort. I'm just like, I'm going to come up and meet you. And for many other people, this could be a very scary thing to be on the receiving end or to be, actually doing it. But, I look at it as just me doing my part and just, because I personally have always kind of felt a little, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say that the most rejection I ever felt, that still is something I'm kind of getting over, is, or getting through, is rejection from being Korean American in a lot of the communities. And it almost like you have to fit some criteria in a way, or some requirements in order to be seen. And I'm just like, I'm not going to do it like that. I was like, I'm going to try anyway to be welcoming as much as possible, or at least just, oh, that girl over there who, I don't really know her name and we just met 2 seconds ago. But I was like, no, I'm somebody who's more than willing to have a conversation, as long as you keep it cool and don't say weird things. And if you say weird things, at least make them like, conversational weird things and whatnot.
Well, not to put you in the box, but these books get put into categories. So I'm curious, like, what category do you want this book to sit in like bookstores?
Not international, I'll tell you that much. It's just
The
ethnic section. Oh God, you use that word around me, you leave. Go home. God, it's an American cookbook. It's like, it's an American interpretation on basically, like, my parents have been American since 1973. But, do I always get the question of like, oh my God, I love Korean food. I'm like, that's wonderful. I'm happy for you. It's like telling somebody, I love grilled cheese sandwiches. Don't you? Like that kind of thing. But it's also, I know that it's people trying to connect. And I'm just like, you don't have to work that hard. It's okay, guys. Like, it's just like, but my hope is that it would be seen just as a cookbook. I'm like, a cookbook, one voice in the conversation.
How did you get your parents to give you the recipes? Because it is impossible to sit down with my mom and get any sort of measurement or anything for any of her recipes. So I have to like film it and then like transcribe it, and then it just none of it makes sense.
It was, I mean, I know like we're running out of time, but all right, here it was. This was there was 3 frames of reference for getting my parents to give me anything. One was that I said, I'm being paid to do this. So I was like, you do want your daughter to make money, right? And that's a great motivator, I'm telling you, to get them to say anything. But it was also, I think there was a point in time where I think my father had retired and he was very, needed a project. And when I had a question, I would call, but then it would be met with like 5 more phone calls, just like, I think because he wanted to talk and expand or, whatever. And he is a very good cook. It's very much like my grandfather was very adamant about men in our family knowing how to cook, his sons. And because he said, you can never depend on a woman to cook for you. So, right? I couldn't believe that. I learned that much later in life. And so I would like to think that's why our dads are actually very good cooks. But I think for him, it was like, he just goes, I'll say this in Korean, it's like, okay, so 마늘도 넣고, 참기름 넣고, I'm saying, okay, so you put this in, that in. He goes, I didn't say that. I'm like, yes, you did. I wrote it down. And so that was another motivator. But this was my way of actually just getting something written down. I was determined, and I was like, I don't care what we got to do here. I was like, we're going to get this written down. But it was a challenge for them because there's the pig kimchi, the white kimchi recipe. My mother knows how to text and my dad doesn't. So they have a landline. So it's pretty comical. They'll both pick up at the same time and be like trying to talk over each other. And so, I had questions because I was doing research online of people's pick kimchi recipes. And I was like, this doesn't seem like what my dad makes or my mom makes. And I called them and I was like, do you put carrots in it? And he's like, no carrots. And I'm like, how come? And and he had a reason. He said, it'll change the color and the flavor. I don't like it. So I was like, okay. I was like, do you put pine nuts in it? And he goes, no, I don't want to do that. But my mom was like shouting from the background and she's just like, I like pine nuts. And he's like, no, they're arguing back and forth. And it's, when you're on the phone, you're like, hello, hello, like, could you stop shouting? But then I was on the phone with my dad and I had the window pop up on my computer. My mom was texting. She goes, you can put whatever you want into there. And she's like, who cares? Like, it's fine. Everybody can have whatever they want. Just put it at the end. So there was things like that. I will never forget asking them these things. And now I have it documented. No one's been able to do that. And like, it was the first time when he opened this, I was like, it's the first time I knew he was paying attention. He didn't actually close it and be like, oh, that's nice, and just get out of here. No, I took a video of this moment because it was like, it was nerve-wracking as hell, guys. I was like, God, like, let's see. Because, like, they saw how big the check was to the photo company. So it was. And so my mom, it was the only copy I had at the moment, and I'll end with this, but it's the only copy I had at the moment. My mom wore kimchi gloves to open it and look through it. But like my dad was just eating peanuts, like nobody, I was like, go wash your hands. And he's just like, nah, whatever. And he just kept eating. But there's in the video, my mom's opening it, she's having some trouble looking at it. But then my dad's just kind of like nudging her off. He's like, I want to see. They've known each other. They've been married for over 50 years. They're just bickering all the time. And for him, he just very quietly just went through it. The whole thing. He read the whole thing. And it was the first time, you don't have to question how they feel about something. Mm. And I was like, wow, I'm really happy. Like, you actually can see like what your daughter's been doing. He had to make one comment, which was that like, that kimchi is very red. I'm like, if that's it, then I don't care. That kind of thing.
Gotta always throw in something like that.
Yeah.
When my parents watched like Takeout, for example, I think I was like, waiting for their comments, and I think my dad made a comment about the size of their shapes of faces. So.
Yeah, I mean, we taught my parents how to use Netflix, so my sister was on a show. Yeah, same thing. They're like, and they're just watching, and they're like, all my dad could say was like, wow, they have captions in Korean now. They must be making a lot of money. And then also my mom's like, wow, Kathy looks so beautiful. And I'm like, are you even watching what they're doing? So this to me is it's a gift from them that I can actually write it down for them. But it was a challenge for them. Even when he did have to write it down, I didn't ask him to, but he did. For the record, the kimchi avocado nigiri, that's his recipe. It is, Japanese, but it's still very American to him because it was just using the avocado that was left over and putting kimchi on there. It tastes like a bite of kimchi bokkeumbap, but not cooked because of the fat and also the kimchi. It's delicious. So.
Well, they're obviously very proud of you. But like, how does it feel like having this out in the world and seeing like all these people who are coming to support you? I feel like you spent a lot of time supporting other people, and I'm just curious, like, how does that feel?
I'm gonna say this and try not to get emotional because I've been practicing. But you always think that you're alone in a lot of these things, and sometimes you just stand alone in a lot of the things you want to talk about and do, and who cares? I am very lucky to have all of you. So thank you very much for being here. And you.
And then the last question is, you mentioned that this book sort of came to you, and wouldn't have been the sort of first, book or whatever that you would have made. Like, what is that book? Like, what's your next book, basically, that you would like to make?
Are you listening? I would love to do, well, first of all, I find it a little unorthodox, if you know me, that my first book doesn't have any desserts in it. It kind of breaks your heart. But I want to do a book for, like, dinners and group dinners, basically. But some things that I told my kids and my students how to make, and the parents who learned from me too, how to just cook the food you love. And for many people, they still don't really know, but they love finding it where they find it. And after the pandemic, you realize just how many our favorite restaurants are now closed. So learning how to make a lot when you can, I would love to do a book with all the comforts, all the dinners that, and also that can multiply into us dinners.
Cool.
Or not just dinners.
Get her book, buy like 10. I think also, I don't think people realize how important it is. I didn't really realize how important it is to buy these books, as soon as they release and leave reviews, because it helps just, publishers see that, it's not just an Instagram follower account, but that there are real
It's already
people
in second printing, by the way.
That's amazing. Congrats. That's amazing.
Yes. So we're the little engine that could. Let's keep it going.
Yeah. So thank you, and congrats again.
Thank you, Helen.
Yeah.
This is Helen, by the way, if you don't know who she is. I met Helen because, first of all, she let me interview her, and also because it turns out we knew a mutual friend who's now my cousin-in-law. But it was just like an Instagram video. I was like, "You were at the wedding?" And I was like, "Wait a minute, like I know who you are." But it turns out they grew up together. Korean Geo guys. But yeah, I think you all need to know who she is as well. She's changing the industry as we know it. So please pay attention to her.
No, I think another thing that really resonated with me was like I work so much behind the scenes, and like you do as well, like championing other stories and people, and like I said, like if there's any sort of interesting thing happening in New York, especially within the Asian American community or food community, like you best believe she is first in line. And everybody has a picture with them. So, cool. Yeah. So I guess we'll just open up for questions if anyone has any questions in the audience.
This is awesome because I know most of you. Oh, come on, honey.
On page 185, you have a hot honey tofu recipe.
Oh, yeah.
Tofu recipe,
Yes.
Which for me is exciting because I really like tofu and I grew up eating it. Can you maybe take us on a little bit of a journey as to how you come up with these types of recipes that are like, they might seem like,
Yes.
Okay.
yes, they might seem like, they're like, what, weird and odd, but actually they work and they're delicious.
Thank
so
you.
good.
How would you know these things?
He's a super fan.
I'm super fan. Aw, you look just like my husband.
So the question was,
So the question was the journey to. I'm sorry.
How do you come up with some of these?
How do you come up with some of these recipes? Sorry, we're repeating the question for viewers. Honestly, it came from working with people, talking to people, seeing what people were interested in making. Actually, that recipe came out of working with one of the families I worked with. And the kids loved to cook, which I loved, and it made my job a lot more fun. But it was one of those ordeal. It was one of those things where I also noticed that I needed to, there were also vegan families that I wanted to accommodate. And so hot honey tofu, it's hot honey in quotes because it's not. It's very much agave nectar and kotokaru and a bunch of other things that are in there that you can have with your rice. It's delicious. So it's a variation almost, and that's kind of how it lands. It's just from paying attention to what people are not necessarily just asking for. You can't always, in my personal philosophy, is that you can't always give in to the customer always being right, because sometimes what they want is not necessarily.
Sometimes they're wrong.
Yeah, there you go. See, you said it so much better than me. But that was where it really came from, was just paying attention to what I was willing to eat myself. And also what would, just be something of interest to vegan, vegetarian families and people who wanted tofu, more tofu recipes. Yeah.
This is more of a comment. I got a couple of copies for the algorithm, so I've read the forward already. And the forward is such a beautiful tribute to who you are as a person and for how you stand up for everyone. And it is like, maybe you've seen it in person, maybe you've seen it largely online. Don't skip. Make sure you read every word. It is such a beautiful poem to who Carolyn is. And
it's true though.
It's right. It's just wonderful that this exists. And so, pardon that it's a comment and not a question. I'm so proud of you.
Can I tell you? I read that foreword. It was a nice compliment about the foreword for viewers at home. The thing is, so you sent that to me when I was in line to see John Baptiste at Cooper Union. And I was not expecting, it was a moment I really wasn't expecting it. And I just read it, and you can tell, you can ask him and our friend who I was with, I just started tearing. I'm like, I didn't know she would say those things about, or anyone. You get so used to the no's, the things people will say that you need to do, that you should do this more. This was a person saying that everything I was doing was great. That was, amazing.
Yeah, I feel like so much of it is like your effort and keeping forward, right? Like just keep going even despite all the no's, but also like karma for like, honestly, it's like you put in so much work, and it's about damn time that people recognize your work.
Thank you.
And and all the sexy side pieces on the table. Truly.
Non-discreet, sexy side pieces.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yes.
Hi. Is there anything that surprised you the most in writing your book? Anything that you learned about yourself, or maybe something that you thought was going to be a challenge and ended up easier, or you thought was going to be easy and ended up being a challenge?
The question was, what do I? You're actually right next to it. They might have heard you, but it's the question was, hey, what did I discover that I didn't know before? This, if I'm being honest. He can tell you, my husband, like I thought, for example, I thought that my launch was going to be about 10, 15 people, because they were all going to be people that I was in constant touch with, for the years. Because for a month I was getting nothing but like messages from people saying like, I can't come, like I have something else to do, like wash my car. I don't know, just like you just kind of have to roll with these things of wondering constantly who's with you and who's not. When you're writing a book, I didn't realize, and the word grueling was used a lot to describe it when other people I'd spoken to had told me about their experience. They're like, it can be grueling. It made me feel like I was the worst writer, the worst person, the biggest imposter syndrome. And I would freeze at times, because I was like, if I write that, then the Korean community is going to hate me. And like, then you have to kind of just say, fuck it. Like, you hate me anyway. Or, just, it's like nothing, when you think to yourself, nothing I'm going to do is going to be 100% everyone on my side. It's just not. And I was like, that's really where if you have tenacity, you kind of just follow through. But yeah, I mean, there's been like panic attacks and, just arguments and fighting. There were times I was like, why am I fighting for a community that I feel rejects me a lot? And I said, because I'm not fighting, for all of them who don't have it in them to accept you or who you are. It was basically like, but there's more people like you than you think, and you're fighting for them. So
we got your back.
Anyone else? Yes. I see you. Don't worry.
You mentioned kind of discovering your palate for like good kimchi versus bad kimchi, but now I'm paranoid. I've been having bad kimchi my entire life. So could you, for uneducated palates, could you describe the distinction?
Oh gosh. For me, okay, I'm just going to say what I believe to be, and maybe people will disagree. If it tastes like beer, that's which was one batch that we got from a refrigerator, like, because it was the only thing available, and this was pretty recent, And we just kind of were like, oh God, like what happened? But then when you cook it, it was a totally different story because it was very fermented, and eating it whole on the spot was, it's like, you're not for that, you're for this. But for me, it's also just like, if it's kind of flavorless, that to me kind of is like I'm just chewing on cabbage with, stuff on it. Another thing for me is texture. If it's too mushy or too, just very much or too watery. I know there's water kimchi, and I didn't put that in the book, but I wasn't too acquainted with making it. Neither were my parents, I think. But in the end, that's what I would classify as, kimchi that I personally don't find to be great. Or if it's too salty, that's another thing, something flying around here. But I mean, you just keep at it, and you'll like what you like, and some you'll find or you like better more than others.
Definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hi.
Question is what is it called? What's the mayonnaise fruit salad called in Korean? I don't even know the name.
What is it? Do you? I'm just like
Fruit to salad.
Salad. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, quiet salad.
An accent.
Yeah. Exactly.
Ambrosia? No, I'm just kidding. Anyone else?
One more.
One more? Oh, you know what? Let's do 2. Yes.
Hey, yeah, and for context, as a mixed race person who's Filipino American and Italian American, I really appreciated your comment about trying to have this as American cuisine as opposed to putting it in different sections. So I wanted to ask, outside of just purchasing the book, what steps can people do to socialize this as, hey, this is the fabric of American cuisine, rather than saying, oh, Asian American is something else?
So that's a good question. This wasn't me. This was Tony Bourdain, who said the landscape of the American table is changing. It's just very undeniable at this point. And I get to see how it's interpreted, not by necessarily us who are all adults, for the most part, sorry, Mino, but also through Mino's generation, and seeing how they've seen things and how it's changing on that scale as well, seeing other Asian Americans kind of thriving within writing American cookbooks or having American restaurants. And because I think that definition is also kind of taking a different stance and evolving on that scale. My interpretation of this food is so different than what my parents, how they came to that. There's a thing I put in there about they couldn't find kimchi when they came here. They do strained sauerkraut. They lived in Brooklyn. They strained sauerkraut and they used hot sauce. And, my dad said, it wasn't perfect, but it satisfied the craving. So I would say, as we're all kind of, we are, as we're all just going to have to come into acceptance on the same scale of that being American is no longer what you once thought it was or defined it as, and we're not all, blonde and blue-eyed standard pretty much, that, a lot of us were born here and lived here and got educated by the American school systems, and, it's a very celebrated, hopefully will continue to be celebrated more and more.
Thank you.
I hope that answered your question. Sorry, last one, yeah.
I know your dad was your source of inspiration for all your recipes, but are there any other Korean chefs or American chefs that you went back to?
Oh, wow. Went back to.
The question was.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Forgot to repeat the question. The question was, were there any chefs that I went back to for inspiration? Truth, not really. Mostly because I think that would have messed me up. And the first time I attempted to, it really did mess me up because I'm like, I'm not this person and no one's going to believe me. And it was really hard. It really was like a hindering thing because you're told your whole life that you have to be of a certain stature to be considered, a good Korean or and it took me my entire life up until I would say even up until I was 38 years old. Now you know how old I am. Older than that. But I will say that, you know, it kind of was, it was the one thing I did go back to them to, if anything, was to see how they evolved. And truth, a lot of the books that were written before, Korean books, Korean cookbooks, yeah, a lot of them just had the same recipes in them. And it was just repeat after repeat, but just different people. And dare I say it, the women that wrote these books were not as celebrated as, you know, Roy Choi or David Chang or any of those guys. And not that they haven't, you know, made their mark either. But I was like, what about the rest of us? And, you know, in my media work, I was like, there's so many more of us out there, us women who are just contributing everything. They taught the men how to cook. So your grandmother, your mother, your sister, your aunt, and it's like, but where are they? And of course, you know, I'm sure these mothers were very giving to their sons for them to take up the glory, but I'm also like, no, like us ladies, we're doing it. We're doing the work. We're doing it 3 times as hard. We're trying, you know, I see some people in here who are business owners and trying our asses off. And it's one of those things where I think the only way the needle is going to be moved by any of us is that we have to pay attention to women, pay them, may I add, pay them what you're paying the men. And also to find the compassion. We all don't have to do things the way that they've been done before. But really just, I wanted to see how anyone had evolved. And truth, I think now, especially in the last 10 years, I want to say that it's been more, I don't want to say accepted, but it has been more practiced.
Your next book.
I know, I was going to say you should write a book about making a book. I feel like there's so much that people don't know.
I don't know. I might be blacklisted.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys for coming.
Just very quickly, if you're on the live stream, please buy a book in the link in your description. Caroline is going to be over here signing, and I'm going to have you line up right here against this bookcase. And if you can please pick up your belongings, we are going to start breaking down the space. And thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Soap cup. I love you.
Oh, love you too.
Thank you.